what we're going to do, I hope, in this class is analyze and discuss this poem by an industrial revolution age English poet called William Blake, very famous poet in the English tradition. And perhaps his most famous poem is the one called Tyger. Okay. Now we've got two versions up here. I don't know how you all are in terms of seeing. Here is the one on acetate, which we've put over on here. Now I'm thinking if I move it over here, maybe I can make it a bit bigger and you might be able to see. So as long as I don't drop the machine or something, if I pull it to this table. Now it might become too big. And then we play with the setting. Move it up very slightly, we can stick it up. Something like that. So that's a bit bigger, isn't it? Hopefully fairly clear. We've got the one online there which hasn't got all the text on. So what we're going to do, like we did with that painting of Louis XIV, is look at it, or in this case, read it. Okay. Then we might look at some of the words, because some of the words may or may not be familiar to you. It's important that you understand the words. Then I shall read it out loud. I shall declaim it, perhaps as a poem should be, and then we'll try and understand it. Now, though it's quite simple, it's quite a complicated poem. There's all sorts of different kind of images and ideas here. What I want us to look for in particular is whether we can see things, ideas, concepts from the Industrial Revolution. Okay? There are things there, I think. He's using some images from the industrial times. Not always very clearly, but some ideas we can see. And then we want to look at how he's using it and what he's using it for. Okay? Because we can understand the ideas of people at the time by reading the literature which they produced. Okay? Even particularly famous people will reflect some concepts and so on. So for the next few minutes, read one of these. After about a minute or so, I shall move the internet one down so you can see the end of it. If there's any words you don't understand, if there's any words that are not clear, then please let me know. One thing I should say at the start, because it's important, he's writing in a slightly older style, okay? And we'll come across these two words, thy and thine. Does anyone know what they are? TJ? Thinking about it. You forgot. Anyone else not forgotten? Jamberg?
Can be there.
Almost right. The right kind of word, but the wrong person. Thy is not there. It's your. Okay. You know, in Turkish you have sen and siz. Okay, which technically means one person or many people, but you also use siz to mean hocam, you're talking to an important person or something. Like in French, they have tu and vous. Okay, one you, many you, but they also use vous if you're trying to be nice to someone. Now, English used to have one you and many you, and in some forms they still have it. Thou. Okay, thou is one you. You originally means all of you, okay, so it's plural. So this is singular, and what we have now as both singular and plural originally was plural. So thy is your, okay. So thy something is your. Thy brain means your brain, okay. Now where do we get, what about thine? We've got, I think once in here, thine eyes. Why have we got thine? Anyone got an idea? This is not really an English course, but we may as well get these things clear. What's the difference between those? We have what we call the indefinite article, A, beer, a brain, an eye. Now what's happened here? What's the change and why, most importantly? Why do we have a but an?
You put an before the
Because it's, what kind of letter is it? English, look, vowel, okay, a vowel. That's right, thank you. Before vowels, we have an N. Before vowels, it's spelt a bit differently, it's an N. Thy, thine, thine. Okay, that's what he's doing here. So if you see thy or thine, it just means your. Okay, it's this slightly old form of that. Okay, I think everything else is more or less modern English in terms of usage. What he does here is he sometimes makes the sentences very short. We don't have a verb or something because that's what poets do, but you know that from Turkish poetry and things like that. So that's the only word that we might need to look at the start. Okay, I'll give you 5-10 minutes. Read through these versions. After a few minutes, I'll move this one down so you can see the end here. Write any words you don't understand. Ask me anything. Write any ideas, particularly looking for kind of industrial images, things to do with the Industrial Revolution, if you think they're there or not. They may not be there. Are we finished yet? No? Anvil. Anyone got what the word anvil is? What's an anvil?
It's used by blacksmiths.
That's right. Oh, that's pretty good. He knows his stuff here. Very good English. Yeah. Go on.
To, how can I say, knock the iron.
Yeah, yeah. It's the
Like,
sort of thing that you put the metal on and then you hit it with the hammer. So the anvil is the resting part. I don't know what the what's the Turkish word? Do you have a Turkish? It must be a Turkish word for Urs. Okay, so that might help the others. Sinew. S-I-N-E-W. Sinew. Sinew. What's that? Do we know sinew here? No, it's more physical than that. Sinews. We've all got sinews. It's inside the body. Sinews, like muscles, are inside the body, connecting parts of the body and things. So it's part of the inside of our body, okay, that connects parts up and things like that. Any other? Furnace. What was that? Furnace. Juju?
Like a chimney or oven.
Yeah, oven is okay. It's not an oven for making bread or something, but it's a place where, an enclosed place where you have a hot fire and you put the metal in there to make it melt and change shape or something like that. So it's where they will be smelting iron and so on. So it's a very hot place with fire for
Forge.
sorry?
Forge.
Forge, I think, is like the bigger word. Forge means like the whole area. A furnace is part of that. Okay. I think all the other words probably you should be familiar with. Aspire. What about this word? Verb here. If you aspire, if you have an aspiration. What in English? Aim, yeah, okay. Something you're hoping for, you're trying for. You're all aspiring for an A in this course. You're all working and hoping towards that aim, okay, that hedef. So to aspire means to hope or to try for something, okay. And I think, any other words there you didn't get? You didn't understand? Everything else clear? What?
It's like the lamp make.
Oh, yeah, I didn't spot that. Okay. It's here again. So it's kind of, what do we say? Seni, you, doing to you. Thou does to me, okay, I do to thee. Okay, so it's the object of the verb. So it's another one of these things. Sorry, I didn't spot that, otherwise I'd have mentioned it before. So did he who made the lamb make thee? Okay, did the same person who made the lamb also make you? Bashka? Anything else? No? Dread. Oh, got a red one this time. Anyone know what dread is? It can be both, here it's used as an adjective, but it can be to dread as well. What does that mean? Sorry? Yes, I mean, literally we could say scary. You know, something like that. Something, dread is to have fear, okay? Oh, I'm dreading David's class today because he's going to ask some difficult questions. I'm really scared of the class. But also then, if you put it as an adjective before something, it means something which is scary. Okay, David's dread class, David's scary class, fearful class, or something like that. Okay, for another few minutes, I want you to chat together, and I'm going to do like we did last time, and I'm going to disappear to leave you to chat away in Turkish for 5 minutes. Some things I want you to think about, okay, and come up with some ideas together on this. Why a tiger? Why have they got a tiger here? Okay, both historically in terms of other reasons. What's he trying to say about the tiger? Is the tiger a good thing or a bad thing or something else? How is the tiger described? How does he describe the tiger? What ways does he do it? Big question here. Who is the he? Okay, did he who make the lamb make thee? And so on. Who is this he? And what is this lamb? Okay, notice it's a capital L, so it's a name. So it doesn't necessarily just mean just küçük bir kuzu kind of thing. It's something else, okay? I got that one from the Teletubbies. Have you ever seen the Teletubbies? Okay, children's program. There's one that küçük bir kuzu. Meh, it's going. I had to watch that many, many times with my daughter years ago. So it's not one of those things, okay? And finally, the big thing we're looking at is, can we see this? Maybe you'll disagree. I'm going to try and suggest, but can we see some industrial ideas coming here? He was writing as England was really getting into its stride as an industrial nation, okay? So is he using industrial ideas? So let me kind of disappear for a few minutes, give you a chance to talk without kind of David Hodger looking over you, get some ideas together, and then we'll discuss these questions and anything else when I get back. I shall give myself maximum kind of 5 minutes or so. It's now midday, so I shall be back at about 12:05, something like that, okay? And again, we don't need any videoing of this bit. Okay, Kolay Gelsin, see you in a minute. Keep going, keep going. I don't see a lot of mouths opening and shutting, but still. Maybe you got some ideas yourselves. So, did you get some good ideas? You share some thoughts on this one? Yes? No? Why a tiger? Why has he chosen a tiger for this poem? Both in terms of what a tiger means, but perhaps even historically. Think about tigers, where they live and so on. Why tiger here? No one?
Because in Egypt, for example, cats families like
Okay, yeah. Historically, cats are seen as special or something like that. Egypt obviously was a country which venerated cats religiously and so forth. That's a good idea. Where do tigers live, though? I don't think there are many tigers wandering around in the Nile. Do we know where tigers come from? We've got to move up. Bless you, Chuck. Yeah, sure. We have to move a bit further east. Where do tigers come from?
Africa.
No, that's lions in Africa. So yeah, it's in kind of Asian region, Central Asia, and also India. Okay, you think of the Jungle Book. You've seen the movies, the Jungle Book, Disney cartoons, Mowgli, and all that. Shere Khan is the bad guy chasing after Mowgli in that one. I'm going to get you, Mowgli. A tiger, okay, and that the Jungle Book is set in India. It was around this time, end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century, that the British were establishing their power in India. Remember, India is one of the sort of central parts of what was to become the British Empire, okay? It continued to be part of the British Empire until the middle of the 20th century, when India got its independence, and then we get Pakistan and India and so on going their own ways. So probably, in terms of, for someone like Blake, but in terms of people's ideas, they're probably hearing and reading about what's going on in India. People are traveling over there as part of expeditions, and they're hearing about tigers and things like that. So the tiger, perhaps more than the lion, would be an image that people would be familiar with and thinking about in Western Europe, especially in Britain at that time. Okay? They knew a little bit about Africa, but the African thing, European involvement in Africa, comes later. Okay? At the end of later in the 19th century, do we get what we call the scramble for Africa, where people would have been encountering lions more directly. So the tiger, I suspect, is here partly because of the beginnings of British involvement in India. But why else the tiger? There are other animals that live in or lived in India at that time. Why would he choose a tiger, do you think? This kind of overlaps with the second question. Sorry? Symmetry? How do you mean? What do you mean by symmetry? What does symmetry mean? Do we know what that? We didn't ask that word. I presumed you knew, but you may or may not know. If something is symmetrical, what does it mean? Do you have the same word in Turkish? Possibly. Yeah. So symmetrical is exactly the same. Like, we're not. Okay, like my nose goes that way and things like that. But here, symmetry doesn't quite just mean the same on either side. It means your appearance or something like that. Okay. So, okay, what's the connection between symmetry and the tiger then? What are you trying to suggest?
Because it's for kind of
Symmetrical. Well, I suppose it is, isn't it? You've got those orange kind of patterns, black and orange stripes or something, so it's a symmetrical thing. So if he wants to use the word symmetrical, then it might be good to have a tiger, which you can kind of draw symmetrically. That's one idea, possibly. But what is the tiger representing as well? Okay, let's go to the second question. We'll come back to the first. Simple one here. Do you think the tiger is a good or a bad or something else here? Okay, Tuja, your hand is up.
And also there's a lamp, and these tigers.
He's contrasting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think because of this he chose the two animals.
Right, okay. So you've got the lamb as the kind of soft, "Küçük bir kuzu," and you've got the nasty tiger, which could eat it as well. Many tigers, I'm sure, have eaten little lambs in the past and so on. So you're saying the tiger is a bad thing. The rest of you, do you agree? Anyone want to see the tiger as a positive, good thing in this poem from what we've read? Any ideas? Or do you all agree with Tyger? Bad. Bad, bad, really, really bad. Okay, Tyger, what in the poem, point to some phrases or words which support your idea that it's bad. Okay. I'm not saying I disagree, we just need to support what you're saying.
It says, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? But he's not talking about the fearfulness of tiger, right?
Well, he is. I mean, he's saying the symmetry of the tiger is fearful. So the appearance...
Symmetry of tiger.
Yeah, well, the symmetry, well, we said it doesn't mean literally kind of down the middle. It just means a way of saying your appearance, I think, okay? Your appearance is scary, okay?
I made a little research and I find out that what immortal hand or eye, when he asked, he said the devil or God create the tiger. And he said this is the symmetry. Everything, every good thing came from God, but God...
Okay, dualism. You'll say they're arguing two sides.
Tiger and
Right,
man.
two sides of the thing. Okay, you've been doing you've been online, have you? Okay. Interacting with the internet rather than with the rest of the class. But, okay, so that interpretation of the word symmetry, we don't, of course, with poetry, the great thing about poetry is you can say anything. Okay, because the poet is dead and he can't come and say, oh, I just meant this, or I actually didn't mean that it's exactly down the middle or something. But I was suggesting symmetry here is just the appearance. You're saying it's taken as the two sides, and we'll come back to that point, because that...
I understand nothing because of that.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. No, you use your ability and so. But okay, but the word fearful is there. That's what, for this context, that's what we want. Okay, there's a negative word. If you're scared of something, if it's fearful, then maybe, not necessarily, but maybe it's a bad thing. Okay, things that we're scared of, for us, seem bad. Okay, so if something is fearful, whether it's David's class or Fare on the floor, or whatever it might be, a mouse on the floor, then that's a bad thing for us, subjectively in this sense. Anything else that would suggest a negative view?
There's fire burning in tiger's eyes. Maybe this is scary.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I mean, people, by nature, we're scared of fire. Okay, it's something that we're a bit nervous about, whether it's electricity or not. I suppose that's a bit more. That's not so explicit. Fearful definitely means scary, korkmuş, bad. Fire in the eyes. Well, you could go one way or the other, I suppose. Okay, but that's presenting it as kind of. I would suggest powerful. A lot of this image is stressing the power of the tiger, which of course is also scary, but not necessarily bad. Okay. But the image in general is pushing it that way. And we did have fearful again and dread, okay, but that's different. I think that's a different thing. So, okay, in general, we're suggesting there is a more negative feeling to the tiger. There is this power, but also it's seen somehow as possibly a bad thing, as opposed to the little lamb that we're talking about, which obviously is meant to be a good thing. Okay. So he's chosen the tiger because the tiger was or is a powerful, strong, and fairly scary animal. and something which at the time people were learning more about from travellers, visitors to India and things like that, and perhaps some people on expeditions were killed by tigers, so it's coming back at that time as a strong and perhaps negative thing. Okay, let's look again at this question. We've started doing that, but in more detail. How is the tiger described? What phrases and words have got? Well, we've got things like fearful, okay? But what other descriptions have we got of the tiger? What else can we see that is describing the tiger, whether in a negative way or as a powerful thing? Can you see anything else?
Immortal hand or eye.
Okay, where is that? What immortal hand or eye? Now, what are we referring to here? Where is this bit? What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetries? So, the immortal hand or eye is not necessarily the tiger. The immortal hand or eye here is the other thing, the he, that is creating the tiger. Okay. So, in terms of the poem, we've got thou, thee, thy. That's the tiger. He's talking to the tiger. Okay. He's saying, tiger, tiger, burning bright. He's talking to the tiger. Okay. But then he asks these questions. What immortal hand or eye? Okay. Did he who made the lamb make thee? Okay. He. What immortal hand? That's someone else. That's another thing which is doing something. So the you bit, the thou bit, the thee is the tiger, and then there's something else, someone else out there that's in the mix as well. So the immortal hand or eye, I think, is the other one, and we'll come to that later. So let's look at the thou bits, the things which refer to, well, we've had one already, okay, the fire of thine eyes, as 2J said, okay. And what shoulder and what art, what creativity, okay, this is the he again, could twist the sinews of thy heart. And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet did something or whatever. Oops. What's happening to the heart here? Could twist the sinews of thy heart. And when thy heart began to beat. Is it saying here about the tiger or about the tiger's heart? The sinews, we said, are the kind of muscles inside and so on. But what is happening to the tiger and the tiger's heart in that little section there? Any ideas? It's the tiger's heart, thy heart. He's addressing the tiger, your heart. Okay, and when your heart began to beat, what is happening? Twist the sinews of thy heart. And then your heart begins to beat. Twisting first, and then the heart begins to beat. So what's going on? Creation. Okay, the tiger's being made. His heart is being made, twisting the sinews to make the heart, and then it begins to beat. Okay. What the hammer, what the chain, blue, the chain. Okay, those are things. So, the poem is about the tiger. It's a powerful creature, possibly negative, scary at least creature. And it's what about the tiger? We've got the heart. What are we talking about when we talk about hammers, chains, furnaces, anvils? What are they doing? What are those things doing? What's their purpose in the poem in relation to the tiger? Yeah, we'll come to that bit, but just what's the not the image, just what are they doing? Why are they mentioned in the poem? What's their connection to the tiger? Furnace, anvil, hammer, what are they doing in relation to the tiger? Are they just there? Is the tiger using the hammer or what? Who is using the hammer and why?
God using the hammer to create tiger.
Okay, we'll come back to God in a minute. But the he bit, okay, yeah, is creating. farming, possibly. It's not, I mean, it's creating here rather than digging. But what I'm saying is we've got anvils, hammers, furnaces, and we've got the Tyger. How are they connected? Is the Tyger using the furnace? No, it's the he. And so what's the connection between the he and the hammer and the Tyger? What are they doing to the Tyger? Are they killing the Tyger with the hammer? Hitting him on the head as he comes running at them? Are they kicking him into the furnace so he burns to death? Okay, the fire gets Shere Khan, I remember in Jungle Book and so on. But no. So what are those things doing in relationship, in connection to the Tyger? They are creating him, okay? Shaping him, twisting the heart, we said before, the sinews of the heart, but also the Tyger is being made with the hammer and the anvil, okay? He, whoever that might be, the he, is using these things to smash metal and create the Tyger, okay? He's created like a blacksmith in his forge creates metal instruments that we use on farms or wherever it might be. In this way, the Tyger is being made. So he's being created here like a metal object, okay? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, okay, again we've got the religious image, we're going to come to that in a minute. Did he smile his work to see? Was he happy with what he'd done? Okay. Was the Creator happy? And did he who make the lamb make thee? Okay. Is it the same person that made the lamb and made the Tyger? And was he happy when he made it? Sometimes we create things and we're not happy. Okay. Frankenstein's monster or something from the Mary Shelley novel, okay, turns out to be a rather horrific kind of creature or whatever, not quite the Hollywood image that we're all familiar with, but still. So you might not always be happy with what you've made. The end product maybe a little bit more not what you anticipated. Was he happy with that? Okay, made the Tyger, oh dear. Okay, bit of a mistake there, but it's too late now. The Tyger's out there, or something. Okay, questioning the Creator in that sense. So the Tyger is described as being created, and being created in a physical way, not born in the way that we are all done in a biological way, but created with this anvils and furnaces and so on. We've seen it described in a rather fearful kind of way, and even suggesting that the creator of this thing, the maker of the Tyger, might be scared and so on. Okay. Okay, let's go to what Tyger's been trying to say for a while. Who is the he? Who is the he that's mentioned in this poem? Who is the creator here? Well, it's God. Okay, that's what she's been saying from her research or whatever. And normally in English, these days at least, I don't know about what they necessarily did in the 18th century, but normally when we talk about God, one God, we make a capital H, okay? So if you're talking about Roman gods, there are many gods, Apollo and Zeus and all these things, that in Greek and Roman gods, then you'll use small h, he or she or whatever. But for the one God, Christian God, Allah from Islam or whatever, then you would have a capital H, okay, he. So if you ever read a text where there's a big H and E, then probably they're talking about God in some way. But it's not here, okay? Either they didn't do it at that time, it's more recent, or else he's deliberately avoiding that. He's making us understand it's God without making it clear. So we're talking about God here, okay? I don't know whether your research has told you about the Lamb. Who is the Lamb? Any ideas who the Lamb is? Who the Lamb represents? It's not the little kuzu. It's got a capital L, so it's a name here. The Lamb means a specific lamb, not just any lamb. Okay, we're not just comparing a tiger, nasty animal, big fearsome animal with a nice little lamb. The image of the lamb is being used, but a certain person or thing is being suggested as the lamb. Now again, since none of you are Christians, I suppose, you're not familiar with this image, but there is someone who is the Lamb. Jesus Christ, okay, in common Christian tradition, is seen as the Lamb, okay, the Lamb of God and all this kind of thing. Okay, so the Lamb here represents niceness and all the other things, but it's also an image for Jesus. Okay, so Jesus is God, but put on earth. Okay, and we're asking the question is, did God, who comes to earth, is the origin of Jesus in a Christian sense, did he also make the tiger? Okay, now this is the dualism. Maybe this is the word symmetry as we had before. Dualism means what? Do we know what the word, if you talk about something being dual, not in the sense of duel could also be two men fighting each other or something, but a duel also here in a abstract way means what? Dualism. Do you know that word? Well, it could be. I mean, but usually it just means we're looking at two things. Okay. Dualism means we understand something, whether it's a poem or the world, in terms of two parts: the God and devil, good and evil. Okay, something like that. Or it can be, you know, well, symmetry down the middle, two halves, or something like that. But dualism here means we're using the image of two things. Like we have, in English we say two sides of the coin. In Turkish you say two sides of the medallion. Okay, that's a kind of dualistic thing. Well, there's this, but there's also this. Okay, there's a contrast between two things. It's quite natural because we have, our bodies are split in two, we have two eyes and all that, two halves of our brain, so the way we've evolved perhaps makes us think quite naturally in terms of splitting things up into two, or whatever, I don't know why. And there's a strong dualistic tradition in religions because of this idea of good and evil. And then there's a big question here is, God is the source of everything, so God is the source of evil. And that's kind of what's going on here. Okay, why has God created the tiger, this powerful and potentially dangerous and bad thing, whereas on the other hand, he's created good things, represented by Jesus in this case. Okay, questioning there in a way. Okay, we have 3 minutes to answer the last question, which is, I've suggested that we can see this poem up to a point, not entirely, but up to a point, we can see some kind of industrial images. It's not perfect. There are other poems he uses where he talks about dark, satanic mills, very famous phrase. He's saying factories are like Satan or the devil, whatever, okay? But I've chosen this one instead. What things in here can we see as being industrial in a way? It's not perfect image, but I think it fits in the ideas of the time.
The tools, hammer, chain.
And the furnace. We taught last week on Friday about smelting and melting the iron industry was developing using coal and things like that. It was a very big thing. And of course, coal produces lots of horrible smoke and things and so on. The tiger is made, it's manufactured. It's not born, in a sense, okay? It's created. That's what the whole poem is about, that God has created, okay? And it's not just putting some things together, it's smashing in hot fire, it's with metal and so on. So although blacksmiths existed in the Middle Ages and they did smash hot iron and melt it and so on, I would suggest that there is this idea of kind of creation here, manufacturing, artificial. Okay, this is something which is created in a not quite perfect industrial context, but the point is it's something which has been manufactured. That making things in an artificial, false way with metal and hammers is what has created the tiger. And the lamb was made by God as well, but we don't have the same image there. Okay, it's almost as if it's born. And of course, Jesus is the Son of God, is God, so that's a different thing, coming from God. Whereas here, God has to make the tiger, has to go to the factory almost and smash it and things like that. So I think people living at the time would have seen or felt this contrast between natural world or whatever and so on, and then the artificial creation of the tiger, this power and this strength and things like that coming out. It's not a perfect thing. It doesn't say, and you're in a factory and there are people pulling strings and things like that, but the feel of it is this creation, this creativity which is going on. And of course, people were living at that time, he was living at that time, they can see particularly in parts of Britain and elsewhere, these factories coming up, smoke coming out, burning and so on, creating these new machines, whatever. Okay, and again, they might be saying, is this what God wants? Are we creating too much? Is this, what are we doing to God's world, to nature, creating all these factories and creating all these things? And is it something there? And of course, the big question is, who is the Tyger? Final question. Who is the Tyger? What is going on with this dualistic image, lamb and tiger? Who ultimately is being questioned? Is it literally the tiger in India, or is it something else perhaps? Any ideas?
The evil inside human.
Yeah, I think that's probably ultimately what's being asked, is us. We have two sides. We are good and bad. We are powerful and weak. We are the tiger and the lamb, okay? And where do those sides of us come from? The side that creates evil, the side that destroys whatever it might be, as well as the side of us that can do good. So this is not just about religion, it's also about kind of psychology of human beings or something like that. We could go on forever. So again, with poems it's great because you can say anything, particularly if the poet no longer alive, of course, to disagree, but that's all the fun of it. And for historians, what we're trying to do is to look at the poem in a context. Industrial Revolution, English conquest, beginnings of the English involvement in India, for example. All these things fit together. It's not just floating in the middle of nowhere. It's coming from a time and a man who lived in a world and experienced what was going on about him and wrote that poem. 400 years earlier, probably this poem would not have been written in quite the same way if Blake had lived earlier, because the world he lived in was a rather different one, the world he experienced. So this is a product of his time, Industrial Revolution, colonialism beginning and things like that. Okay, thank you for your thoughts. We shall do one more of these things for the last topic, and I'm hoping that maybe we might break you up into groups and get some more discussion going. I shall try and look at your essays and all the other things you've given me tomorrow afternoon, because I have my office hours, but I will be seeing, well, okay, Sibel and Yars will be coming hopefully with their presentation partners, but they're not here at the moment. But try and contact them, remind them that we have our meeting in History Department, MA123, tomorrow afternoon. Okay? Thank you very much. See you all on Wednesday.